Welcome back, Tiger fans, to Rockin' Radio's football podcast. I'm Nate Edwards. That's Nathan Hurst. This is Before the Box Score. Welcome to Talkin' Season. Welcome to SEC Media Days. It's been a busy week for the football coaches. No longer on vacation, getting in front of people with microphones and cameras and recording devices and having all your words written down on social media and on various broadcasting networks. So that's where we're at, which means football's right around the corner as we round out of July and into August and getting into fall camp. It's getting closer every day. Nathan Hurst, how are you doing?
I'm doing all right, recovering from a wonderful summer cold. There's nothing worse than getting a cold in the middle of the summer, so apologies to all the listeners out there for my scratchy voice today, but we're going to try to power through and make it happen. Ironically, the closer we get to college football season starting, the less it seems like we have to talk about until actually the team hits the field, which it sounds like might be within the next 10 or 11 days. I think July 28th might have been the day that Drinkwitz kind of hinted at that summer practice would start. So it is rapidly approaching.
It is. And we're going to get into that and everything he said today. It is Thursday the 17th. He did go this morning, so it's still relatively fresh in our minds, so we're going to talk about it. But we also have not talked about the most recent recruits, man, and that kind of dovetails into what Drinkwitz has talked about at least a little bit today. So we're going to talk about all the recruits that we have not talked about on this show. There's 3 of them, and we're going to go through them today, and then we'll get into SEC Media Days. So rewind your brains, go back a couple weeks. If you can remember all the fun recruiting news that we got right out of the 4th of July, heading into SEC Media Days, we got 3 of them. So let's start with the fancy pantsy one. Brandon Anderson, 4-star interior lineman. Where's he from? Georgia. What's he rated? 355th best player in the country, 29th best inside offensive lineman, 45th best player in the state of Georgia. He is 6'3", he's 326. He is a Missouri Tiger, at least verbally he is. Brandon Anderson, good film. What did you think, Nathan Hurst?
Yeah, I mean, he's going to be a good player. He's a big dude. He's probably not going to come in and start as a freshman, but he's one of the, and that's kind of, I think this is what we're seeing with all the offensive linemen that Drinkwitz is bringing in this class, at least so far, these are guys that are going to really build depth for the room and be guys that within 2 or 3 years, you could really see all 3 of them, at least so far, that could find their way onto the field by the time that they're, redshirt sophomores, juniors. They're all athletic. They all can move, they're not stationary targets, and this guy is one of those for sure. I very much like the fact that we took him away from Tennessee and from Bill Belichick in North Carolina, for that matter, as well, because it seemed like those were the 2 biggest competitors for his services. And we don't get a whole lot of guys out of Georgia, so it's nice to tap into that recruiting hotbed, because there's a lot of talent in that state, and while a lot of it does go to Georgia, we could bring a few of those guys up here as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's nice. Yeah, he's just fun tape. He's not an NFL Hall of Fame kind of high school tape where he's just, picking up high schoolers and throwing them around as an offensive lineman. But, it's very impressive. He's quick. He's strong. He's mean. Most of his tape is him just landing on a dude or completely decleating a guy, which is just a lot of fun. But yeah, it's also another one of those recruiting wins that I feel like the fan base needed. This recruiting class, probably since the first time since 23, has just felt like more high upside 3 stars rather than the blue chippers that Drinkwitz has gotten us accustomed to over the past couple of recruiting cycles. So it's nice to see that there's a 4-star in there, and obviously one that's highly coveted. And then he's coming to Mizzou, at least for now. So that's all good stuff there. And then let's keep going with the other ones because they're all good. After you went to Mr. Anderson, then we had legacy commit Braylon Ellison, brother of Tyson Ellison, son of Atia Ellison, which if you are my age or Hurst's age, you remember from the early aughts Missouri Tiger teams, who's also now a coach on staff with the Tigers himself. Braylon Ellison. Legacy is, I think, the biggest thing that's going to be thrown around with him, but what did you think of his addition as far as a guy on the depth chart addition?
Yeah, I mean, another guy who's not going to come in and play immediately, but he has a good frame. I mean, he's a big dude, only 285 pounds right now, so he's going to have to put a little bit of weight on. But what I did like about his film was he moves really well outside of pulling. He played tackle in high school, plays tackle in high school, which is to be expected for a SEC level recruit at wherever he's playing. Um, he moves really well. I could see him being a really good pulling guard if he can add 30 pounds. He's gonna have to probably add 30 pounds regardless of where he ends up playing, just because he's pretty light right now. But he moves really well. He gets downfield. He will get to the second level really easily. He can pull really easily and track down linebackers really well, which that's really what stuck out to me in terms of just his general athleticism. And to be honest, even if he never really lands one of the top five starting jobs, a starting lineman, he could really be if he stays the same size, be kind of a blocking tight end, if nothing else. Now you may not want to throw a pass to him, but add him as a sixth offensive lineman that can, get outside and really run that stretch zone outside on either end, move him around a little bit, or even as an H back. I think he could be. He's just kind of got that athleticism.
Yeah, he's like right in between the size you want for a blocking tight end and a offensive lineman. So it is kind of dependent on how many uncrustables he wants to eat in college. Or how many they assign to him. He does have really good feet. I will give you that, and I think that served him well as a tackle in high school. He's got really good form, but yeah, he's just which is wild to say that 285 pounds is a little light, but that's just football in 2025. Yeah, I'm really curious how they want to use him. And to your point, yeah, as a guard, heck yeah, um, needs bigger butt. That's what he needs if he wants to be a guard. But also, think of it just kind of like I'm not. This is me projecting a lot, so this is kind of a silly comment, but I'm going to say it anyway because it's my show. Um, he's a football kid, man. He's a coach's son. He has grown up around this program. He's grown up around football. He's probably got the smarts to be a center, and centers need to be a little bigger, a little faster than the other linemen. You kind of have to be a little bit of both. I wonder if maybe that would be in the cards for him, but we will see. He is projected as the 117th best interior offensive lineman, 15th best player from Missouri. The Boonville pipeline, it's not a robust one, especially since the only other guy we got, DJ Westlake, is now at Oregon State. But still, local kid, about 20 minutes away from Columbia, and dad's on staff, so he didn't get scared away from that and say, screw my parents, I want to go somewhere else, which is nice. And sometimes you run into that with legacy guys. Um,
Yeah, I
but
don't want
yeah,
to give his dad short shrift either for those who may be a little newer to the Mizzou fandom. T. Elson was really one of the all-time great Tiger defensive players. I think at one point in time was he the all-time tackle leader or competing for all-time tackles
he was up there. Yeah.
in the program by the time he was done. Really good linebacker. Just one of those, just a tackle machine, a guy that was always around the ball, always knew where he was supposed to be. Really good player. So it'll be cool to see his youngest, or I think he's the younger son, joining the squad.
Yeah, certainly younger than Tyson. I don't know where he ends up on the Ellison depth chart. I am going back here. Atia Ellison, I don't see him anywhere in the top 10.
We've had some pretty good ones since he played too, so he probably got
There's been
buried
a
a little
lot.
bit.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe he's in sacks. No. Oh, this is good radio. I don't know where he ends up, but he was very good. Yes, he was very good. It was one of those first kind of standout players for the Pinkle era, which was yeah, he needed a lot of those, so I'm glad Ellison was there. Cool. Okay. And then to round out, as far as the three recruits that Missouri got since we last talked to you, is a fun name to say, Tony Forney Jr. Get Forney for Tony. He is a 67th ranked strong safety in the nation. He's out of also Marietta, Georgia, from Kell High School. 5'11", 180, high 3-star kid. Thumper, thumper. If he was 3 inches taller, like 20 pounds heavier, he would be a linebacker. But other than that, what did you think of Mr. Forney?
Yeah, I mean he hits. He's a big hitter, which I guess makes sense for us why they kind of list him as a safety. But to be honest, Looking at his tape, he was really good in man coverage and really in coverage in general. To the point where I was a little surprised that they didn't and who knows once he gets on campus how they're going to use him. But I could really see him slotting in as a nickelback, kind of playing man and on the slot. He was always around his guy, and of course it's highlights, so they're not going to show any times he gets burned. But I was more so than some of the other safeties that recruits, and you see those tapes. You don't really see a lot of coverage highlights there. You see a lot of uh, go and play center field and catch a bad pass for an interception, or come up and hammer the running back in a screen or whatever. He played really good man defense, and then really good zone defense as well, handing off receivers, depending on what his assignment was. So I think this guy can play a few different positions in the defense. I like his versatility, and maybe he does land at strong safety. I mean, he kind of is the same size as like a Sidney Williams type. He's not as tall and long as I think Drinkwitz likes his cornerbacks to be, which maybe is another reason why they have him listed as a safety, because he's less than 6 foot, I believe, and maybe he'll grow a little bit. So he's not the biggest guy, but that's why I think maybe nickelback might be a spot he could land at least early on when there may be some more competition at the safety spot.
So that brings Missouri to 10 verbal commits for the 2020 whatever, 26 class. And yeah, you got a handful of blue chippers in there, a lot of 3 stars, and we've kind of bemoaned the urgency of high school recruiting. I know there's been plenty of pieces on here's how Drinkwitz is historically recruited and how July is okay, and then you bring him into the season and like he does really well in the season. So like, I think anybody who is following Mizzou, at least from a recruiting standpoint, has heard why we don't need to freak out. And also some of that is that they haven't played their senior years yet. There's still movement in the rankings as you go through your final year there. So there's a lot of things that can change, good and bad. But it's it feels underwhelming. I think that's where a lot of people stand, and it's great to have recruits, and I think all these guys could be great. But it's just we're almost to the point where we're focusing less on the ones who came in and more on the ones that we missed. To the point. Think of like a Javante Smith, Jaden McGregory, Adam, what is it, Belugan Ali? Like I feel like I hear more about that than the guys that we did get. And to be fair, losing out to like BYU or Arkansas, those are usually teams that Mizzou has beaten in the past 6 years for recruits' services. So it is a little bit revealing. Maybe it's kind of the engine behind a little bit of the hand wringing as to why people seem to be focusing on the negative. But also it's just we've talked about it, right? The house thing. That's money that needs to go places, and you need to keep your roster around. Talked about Drinkwitz with production over potential. You talk about how clearly they spent a lot to keep this defense together, and how they had to bring in 2 big impact offensive players in Bo Pribula and Kevin Coleman, whose services were very much in need by a lot of people. I think there's just a lot of financial hang-ups, prior engagements with the money that means that you cannot spend like you want to on high school players. And so I'm not worried about it. I think it's just going to be a little bit different. But where do you fall on this? Where are you on the panic meter, I guess?
My panic meter is very low, but I am wary of where this could go long term. For this season, for this specific class, I'm not too worried, because as we've discussed, it's been clear what his Drinkwitz's strategy has been, is at least in the last couple of years. He's going to pay for players that have produced on the field. And if you're a high schooler coming up, and you want to be a part of Mizzou, that's great. We'd love to have you, but you're not going to get top end dollar, at least from what Mizzou has to offer, top end dollar at a high school. Now you could certainly earn it by getting yourself on the field early, and making more money, but Drinkwitz is not going to pay, at least clear this class, at least he's not going to play top dollar for those guys to come in and may or may not play this year, or may not play ever for Mizzou. And so I'm okay with that strategy right now. I'm wary to see how it plays out long term, just because, as we said over and over again, you build your program through high school recruiting. You can sprinkle on the transfers on the top, but you have to have a strong high school recruiting base, or your program is going to be too top heavy and it's going to and it tip what one poor season and it's going to topple over. So um, is this a 1 year thing where you're taking a step back from high school recruiting and have a more middle of the road class, much more of a Gary Pinkel-esque ranked class, a lot of 3 stars, a lot of developmental guys that, hey, this could turn out great if you bring in all these 3 stars that aren't expecting to play first thing, aren't expecting to make a ton of money first thing, let them develop for a couple of years, and then here they are as juniors in 2027, and they're ready to play and ready to produce and then ready to earn money at that point, serious dollars at least at that point, and then you're looking great. Um, but it just depends on how that plays out. If these guys stick around, if they do develop, if the assistant coaches can get pull that full talent out of them like Gary Pinkel's staff could do back in the day, then this could turn out to be just a great class. But that just remains to be seen at this point.
Yes. And I want to get to Drinkwitz's quote in just a second, but let's think back on all of Eli Drinkwitz's recruiting classes and throw out 2020. Okay. We're not going to count that one. He was hired in December. He had to salvage it. That's right before COVID. Like, just throw that one away. His worst recruiting class, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. Do you remember what his worst ranked recruiting class was off the top of your head?
It was like 36 or something.
That's 30. Yeah, it depends on the recruiting service, but it was in the 30s. That was the 2023 recruiting class, right before Mizzou went on that magical run. And we were, I think the fan base was like, oh, 32nd after getting 20th best and 12th best and 32nd. Well, let's talk about the guys we got in that 32nd best class. Marvin Burks, second-year starter. Joshua Manning, basically played since he stepped onto campus. Brett Norfleet, starting tight end. Jordan Harris, starting tight end. Marquise Johnson, very important in the 2023 season. That's probably going to be one of our best receivers this year. Jamal Roberts, third down back in his second year. Nick DeLoach, getting starts his second year. Tristan Newsom, JUCO kid, completely overlooked. He is now like the core of that linebacking squad. Blake Craig, our kicker, right? Like, it was not ranked as well as all the others, but where are all the others? They ain't here. The 23 class, you could argue, is the best recruiting class Drinkwitz had, and so far it's been the worst ranked. So, look, recruiting rankings are accurate on the macro. They are inaccurate on the micro. Okay, we all know that. And all these recruits are people. They develop at different stages. Recruiting rankings are really good. They're not perfect. But just because it's ranked low based off of what other people say does not mean that these guys can't contribute. And all those names, they were contributing year one on one of the best teams Mizzou has ever had. Okay, so I'm with you that I'm not freaking out about it. Did you hear his quote about recruiting that he dropped at SEC Media Days today?
I heard it. I don't remember it word verbatim, but it was along what he's been preaching the whole time.
Yeah, I got it
relax.
verbatim.
We got it figured out.
This is via Eli Hoff. So here we go. And quote, this is Eli Drinkwitz, quote, "Freshmen feel like, recruits feel like, they have a certain amount of value that maybe was generated in the past. I'm not sure that's exactly going to be the value moving forward, because in order to get a big time payday, they have to be slotted to come in and start day one. If they're not, my value and somebody else's value on them may be different." Read between the lines. I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm doing.
Yeah, basically, if you're Luther Burden and you're going to come in and be a star on day one, you're gonna make that kind of money here at Mizzou. But if you're not that level of player, or you play in a position where Mizzou already has 3 or 4 guys that are going to be ahead of you, we're not going to value that at the same level of dollars, and maybe you can get dollars somewhere else to do that, but that's not going to be the case here at Mizzou. And based on the relatively, I think, limited budget that Mizzou operates on it relative to the rest of the SEC, Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, Texas, Oklahoma, that's the way I think you have to play it. and I think he's playing it the right way.
But even then, Jesus, look at the depth chart. Think about the depth chart right now. Okay, quarterback, Bo Pribula, Sam Horn. Both of them have 2 years left. Running back, Ahmad Hardy, Jamal Roberts, Tavoris Jones, and Marquise Davis is probably going to get some playing time this year. Receiver, Daniel Blood, Marquise Johnson, Josh Manning, they can all come back next year. And on top of Donovan Olugbade and Sean Terry, who should be awesome. Tight end, you have Brett Norfleet and Jordan Harris for another 2 years if they want. Offensive line, you could slot some guys in there, and they have pulled some portal guys there. But on the defensive side, Nate Johnson, Darius Smith, Damon Wilson, they could all come back next year if they want. Defensive tackle, Marquise Carrasco, Jalen Marshall, Sam Williams, Elias Williams, they can all come back. Linebacker, Khalil Jacobs and Tristan Newsom are gone, but you have Beasley, Rodriguez, Trotter, Huff, like no space there. And on corner, yeah, you could get some guys, but you also already have Nick DeLoach and Shamar McNeil. Like, it is such a busy, stuffed two deep at the top. No, you have to be like a top 100 player to even have a chance at starting at Mizzou this year or next year. So maybe this is a year where you kind of take off a little bit of the spending on high school recruits. You find some guys who are like, well, we can develop this guy and we can save some money here, right? Because he's not going to be asking as top dollar as somebody else. Save your funds a little bit, spend it on maybe a top 10 basketball recruit. I don't know. And then next year come back when most of your depth chart's going to be gone and you still have to portal in anyway. And oh yeah, now we've got some funds freed up because the Pribula and Coleman contracts are going to fall off after this year. And now you got some more money available to bring in other guys. I am not freaking out because even if I'm going to say, yes, this could be the worst rated recruiting class into the Drinkwitz era, which could. Last time he did that, got plenty of freshman utilized players. So I am not going to sweat it until 2 years from now, in which case we can look back on this conversation and say what maroons we were. But that's a future problem.
Yeah, and as you said, like this class does not need, because of the depth on the team that's already been built through the portal and through previous recruiting classes. This class, the 2026 class, does not need to come in and have, even like what the 2023 class did have several freshmen that played and impacted that team immediately. It's hard to foresee 2 seasons from now, but looking at the depth chart as it sits now, the team should not need many of these guys to come in and immediately impact the team day one because of that depth that they've already built in various ways. So they have the luxury even of taking some developmental guys, building, bringing them in, letting them redshirt, letting them develop, give them a couple years runway before that they will be expected to produce.
Yeah. So I've already dropped a Drinkwitz quote in the show today. Probably not the first one you thought I was going to drop, because he was on a heater today. He was all hopped up on Mountain Dew. Had some zingers, had some good ones. Nathan Hurst, what is your stance on the second gunman and the JFK assassination?
Well, without getting too much into it, I don't think there was a second gunman. I do think it was a tragic accident that the FBI did themselves, but I don't want to get into too many details here. Okay. It's not a conspiracy as much as a cover-up, but that's okay.
That's fair. I am proud to say that yes, Lee Harvey Oswald shot and killed the president. But that other bullet where he goes back into the left, I'm telling you, that is a Secret Service agent who had a terrible day and messed up.
Yes,
and
that is exactly what it was.
His service revolver went off and capped the president and gave him the kill shot. That's what I'm going to tell you.
That's exactly where I land on the whole thing as well.
Yeah.
But yes, Lee Harvey Oswald, there were, but one was not intentional.
Yeah, which was a big old whoopsie. not that old Johnny Fitz was going to survive the first 2, but he definitely wasn't going to survive the third. So there you go. Anyway, we're talking about this because Eli Drinkwitz got up there and talked about he wasn't going to talk about the Epstein files. He wasn't going to talk about Lee Harvey Oswald. He wasn't going to talk about any conspiracy theories, which is a fun bar, especially if you're following the news, which, by the way, football coaches follow the news. They play big and dumb sometimes. Say, well, I don't even know when it's time to vote. I'm telling you, they do. They just don't want you to know that they read. That's all. But yeah, he had a lot to say today. What was your biggest takeaway? I mean, was it the impression of how he presented the team? Was there anything specific that he said? What was your big takeaway from his moment at SEC Media Days?
I mean, his demeanor was confident. I mean, I think so. It seemed like last year he came in almost overconfident. I'm not sure exactly why that was, but it was clear that he really felt outwardly expressive that this was going to his team last year was going to be really good, and it was a good
And he
team.
should. He
And
should.
he should have. He should have. This year he was more reserved, but not more tentative in terms of how his team's going to perform, which I think means tells me that he is more quietly confident. Maybe he's, becoming more wise in in his increasing experience to not overhype his own team. Not that I felt like he overhyped the team last year, but it was clear to me his overall demeanor, how he talked about his defense, how he talked about a lot of the pieces that they have returning, that he is confident that this is going to be a good team. Now, there's a lot of question marks there, and he addressed a bunch. I mean, talked about the quarterback battle, and who's going to and who wins that job and who wins the left tackle job is going to end up really making a big difference as to how this team performs, and that's 100% the truth. But you could tell, especially on the defensive end, that he thinks this is going to be his best his best defensive team that he's had, which I would have to agree with him at least, before the season starts. So overall, I left it with a pretty positive impression in terms of how he presented his whole program.
Yeah. I figured he was going to be more reserved this year. I mean, I have more questions about the team than I have in the past 2 years, and I think he does too. But this is also the guy in spring who said this is the most talented roster he's ever had. Like, okay, way to really set the expectations there. Now, an elite roster does not necessarily mean wins. You can talk to Texas A&M for the past 20 years, and they'll say, "Yep, you're right." Well, they'll say, "No, you're wrong. I hate you," but then secretly they'll cry themselves to sleep and say, "Yeah, they're right." But it's acquiring talent's part of it, and he's done a really good job of that, especially with the portal this year. Some impact transfers, quarterback, receiver, defensive end. Um, so I think he is proud of the work that he and his staff have done as far as acquiring talent. I do think he understands that there's going to be some questions, especially about execution, especially about cohesion, team cohesion. Thought it was very telling that he talked about the team's mission trip that they went to, like I guess a month ago, almost a month ago. They built houses, they did service projects, and he talked about building camaraderie through adversity. Not that they were homeless, but you're sitting, sleeping in a bunk with no running water, and you're building houses and stirring concrete, and you're far away from home, and I think he brought that up on purpose. Number one, to show, hey, we're good dudes, which that's just good PR. But number two, it's like, look, these guys are working together. They're learning how to do this, and so from a cohesion, from a chemistry standpoint, I think he's trying to affirm to us that they are good. But just because you hang out, love each other, and have each other's back doesn't mean that you can come back from 10 points in 3 minutes against Alabama. So it's I think there's things to be said. But I thought he did well. He didn't really stick his foot in his mouth like he has in the past. I think he has learned to be funny without really, or quirky and funny without going too far in a direction where people start resenting you. He called out Bob Holt, RIP. He called out Mike Leach, RIP. I thought there's a lot of acknowledgement that he gave to people who have come before him and part of the school and part of the state. And I don't know. I was impressed. It seemed very mature. Still Eli Drinkwitz. You're never going to get away from that. There's always going to be something, but just yeah, a quiet confidence. It doesn't mean anything about the team, but I thought he did well.
Yeah, for sure. I think the thing that people are going to remember more than anything from his comments aren't necessarily about his own team, but about his proposed 30-team playoff, which was when he clarified it. He didn't do a great job of explaining it at the podium, but when he clarified it on Twitter after the fact, it makes a little more sense. So I think he was really talking about not a 30-team bracket, but instead doing more like play. Each conference has their own mini plan to determine their own teams coming in, which makes a lot more sense than having a 30-team bracket that a committee decides on. So I could be okay with something like that, but that still seems like a lot of teams to me.
It does. I mean, you got 10 conferences. You do three teams from each conference. Uh, you know, I don't know if I would want that, but I have run the numbers before. I think there was a piece I did on Rock M, I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago at this point, about how college football is such a gatekeeping championship sport, where it's got like some of the most teams and the fewest participants in the chance to win a championship, and that goes all the way back to the fact that we didn't have we didn't have telephone wires that went across the country until the 40s, and that's it was tradition. We're not going to have a true champion because our infrastructure sucked until post World War II. Like that, it's very weird flex. But it's I am okay with expanding. I don't think there's unlike the basketball tournament where really 64 is the number. If you want to say 68, that's fine. But like, yeah, there's no sanctity around 2, 4, 10, 12, whatever. Like it's not been around long enough to have, um, pro clutching conservative people who are like, oh, it's better than my back in my day. Like we still have, fans of blue blood programs who are saying, why is there a playoff in the first place? Rabble, rabble, rabble. It's ruining my experience because my team doesn't have an easy shot to the playoff anymore or to a championship anymore. So I think if you're going to expand, it's got to be now. But I would like it to stop at some point. If we can get more teams in, obviously that's how you want this to be in my book. You want as many kids playing football as possible if you want this sport to succeed and to last long term. There's no law that says football has to remain popular forever. Go talk to boxing or baseball and see how they feel about that. And to keep this popularity, it needs to have people who can play. And if you want more people to play, you need to have more people interested in playing. And to do that, you need to open up avenues for winning. That's at the high school level and that's at the college level. Otherwise, the NFL is going to lose its product and it's not going to be as entertaining. It's not going to be as good. So, 30, 30, I probably not, but I do like plans. I like teams with a chance.
His big argument was that the NFL gives 44% of the teams a chance to make the playoffs, while college football gives 10% of the teams. With the 60, if assuming they go to 16 teams, that would give, I guess, even 14 teams is about 10%. So way lower, as you said, gatekeeping for that, and to expand that would 30 would give more like 25% of the teams a chance. Which, and he kind of made the argument that a team like Mizzou is not going to get in the tournament, the playoff, very much, if ever, and if and when they get that shot. So I agree a little bit. I mean, I think a 16 team playoff, Mizzou would have made it 4 times in the last
Mm-hmm.
20 or 15 years, really.
Yeah.
17
Yeah.
years, we made it 4 times. So is that as much as Georgia or Alabama or Notre Dame? No, but 4 times in 20 years is once every 5 years. That's pretty good for little old Mizzou.
That's right. Yeah. But yeah, his comments, he talked about the investment in the program, $250 million renovation and how important that is and how, the state's getting behind the school, which, if you've been here since as long as I have, there's a lot of Missouri, Missouri legislators who went to the school in Springfield who don't seem to like the school in Columbia all that much. But it is nice to have that investment in there. He talked about Sam Horn and how, he's looking great. He talked about Connor Tollison. He's 85%. He's not at full practice yet, but they brought him to SEC media days, and when they did that, I was like, oh, it probably means he's going to be starting. And for all intents and purposes, it sounds like he's on track to do that. He talked about Ahmad Hardy riding horses. He talked about Kevin Coleman fishing, like not deep stuff, but like just fun stuff. And he's citing how fall practice is starting up pretty soon. Like, I don't know. It was good to hear from our friend Eli again. And while I'm not as excited about this season as I am for seasons past, I'm always excited for college football and Missouri football to start back up. So it's nice to get back to this spot.
Yeah, 11 more days, I think, was the day I heard. So by the time we're recording the next time, practice will already have started, and
Man,
pads will be popping, and whistles will be blowing, and we'll be less than a month away from college football by the time we record again.
yeah, well, that'll be nice. Yeah. Well, that's your wrap up of SEC media days. It was good while it lasted. Best fit. Who had the best suit? You got Zion Young, Dalen Carnell, or Mr. Tollison. What'd you think?
I mean, probably Zion Young. It seems like he was the most popular of of all the players from any of the schools, at least today in today's slate. So I'm going to have to go with Zion overall for everything.
He did look really good. And he was doing like sharing his impression of Eli Drinkwitz, which I'm not needs a little bit of polish, but you know,
He
good.
he meant it well, and he had lots of energy and seemed like
He
a
did.
pretty fun dude. So
He did.
props on the staff for picking him to come, because I think that was definitely the right choice.
Yeah, I mean, and like you know, Tollison and Carnell been here forever, right? They started here, they're still here. The fact that you brought in Zion Young, who was at Michigan State not even 2 years ago, and is now representing Mizzou at SEC Media Days, I think that's cool, and I think that's a statement to what he can do from the portal, how he can build, especially those multi-year guys you get from the portal. So yeah, I think that's pretty cool. And yeah, Zion was very entertaining. A lot, again, also amped up. I think he and Drinkwitz share the same Mountain Dew or something. So we'll see. Any final thoughts, Nathan Hurst, before we let the people go?
Just, we're kind of so close but so far away at this point. So just, well, I guess I'll have the video game to hold me over for another 6 weeks, but we're actually less than 6 weeks. No, tonight is Thursday night. 6 weeks from tonight is Mizzou football. 6 weeks from July 17th, Mizzou football. So we're there. We're close to there. We're far away, but we're close.
Yeah, which means we're going back to weekly shows in August as we get into camp, and then we're back to our 2-show week schedule once the season starts. So get used to not hearing us every week, because it's gonna be changing pretty soon. But that's the show for today. As always, we appreciate the downloads and the subscriptions. You can leave a comment or rate us. We love all types of feedback from you all. You can follow us on Twitter at Matt and H.E. Edwards. He's at Burst to Hurst. And of course, you can follow the Rock M flagship at Rock M Nation and our podcasting outlet at Rock M Radio. We appreciate you tuning in this time. We'll try to do better next time. And until then, MIZ.
ZOU.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to Rock M Radio, a proud partner of Fans First Sports Network. Rock M Radio is the official podcast network of Rock M Plus, a new and exciting subscription service provided by me and the other voices of Rock M Radio. Please take a few moments to head over to rockm.plus and sign up for an account today. The cost is only $5 a month, and the benefits include access to our live podcast, a subscriber-only message board, weekly newsletters, and more. If you enjoyed this episode of Rock M Radio and would like to see more just like it beamed directly into your personal device, make sure to click the subscribe button below and tell your friends. Our podcast feed is available through the Apple Podcast app for iPhone, Google Podcast app for Android, whatever app you listen to your podcast. You can also find Rock M Radio on Spotify. If you're looking for a podcast about your favorite team that is not the Missouri Tigers, Fan First Sports Network is your answer. A full podcast network loaded with the team-specific podcasts covering Major League Baseball, the NFL, NHL, NBA, MLS, and more. We'll be back with more episodes of Rock M Radio coming to you soon.